Hello, everybody. I'm Nicholas Snow, and welcome to a very special edition of Life Positive, which spotlights people living with, impacted by, or working to bring about the end of HIV and AIDS. Did you know that there are over 150,000 people in the United States who do not know their HIV status? Could you be one of them? Could someone you know be one of them? Could someone you're about to know be one of them? In this episode, we're going to be discussing the importance of HIV testing and a new program, well, a fairly new program at DAP Health, which allows people to get into care rapidly. So that's what's coming up on this episode. And if you watch the entire episode, you win a date with my model right there on the screen. No, actually, that won't happen, but it was a good shot anyway. Before I welcome my special guest, who is returning to the show, I think for maybe the fourth time, I just want to give a shout out to the people that help make this program possible, the PromoHomo.TV superstars. And they are people who donate as little, what used to be as little as $10 a month. Now I have a holler for a dollar level at $1 a month. But basically, that's one of the ways that I promote this, that I help support this program. And I want to give a shout out to the latest superstar, Dennis Chase, who just came on board with his support. So throughout the episode, you'll be able to see more information about that program scrolling at the bottom of your screen. And I also want to know that if you're watching live and you have a question or a comment for me or my guest today, then I can put that on the screen as well. And we can interact with you. Speaking of live, it is 11:03 on Thursday, December 8th, but this program will be viewed in perpetuity. And most of my viewers happen after the fact. So with that, let me welcome to the show, I think for the fourth time, CJ from the Department of Community Health and Sexual Wellness at DAP Health. Hi, CJ.
Hi, Nicholas. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing well.
So I'm embarrassed to say this because you and I are friends and you've been on my show many times, but I always forget how to pronounce your last name properly.
I always tell people it's like I have two first names. It's CJ and then Toby.
Okay, that helps because I always want to pronounce it Tobe, but CJ Toby. All right, that's a good one. So, you shared with me in the preparation for the show that AIDS.gov recently reported approximately 1.2 million people in the U.S. have HIV. About 13% of them don't know it and need testing. And I did the math, and that's over 150,000 people. Now, HIV continues to have a disproportionate impact on certain populations, particularly racial and ethnic minorities and gay and bisexual and other men who have sex with men. And also, access to care in general is a challenge for people in the categories that I just named. And the federal government has partnered, I believe, with DAP Health on a very important program that helps people who have fallen out of care or who are newly known to be HIV positive get rapidly into care. Would you please tell us about that?
I can, and you bring up such a great point. A lot of people think that HIV care, it's you see the doctor, you take your one pill once a day, or now there's injectable HIV treatments as well. But it's the other 99%. It's everything else that's going on to make sure that people in this region know about HIV, that they have access, that they feel welcomed, right? Without stigma, to be able to have that conversation about their sexual activity and be able to then get services for free. It's about hiring and recruiting people within these communities that are most impacted by HIV to go door to door, to go to the churches, to go to these community events and say, hey, let's talk about sex. Let's talk about HIV. Let's talk about health equity and just overall living your healthiest and happiest life. And so there's so much to HIV care and ending the HIV epidemic outside of just medication and seeing that doctor. It's retaining in care as well. So when you talk about this special project of national significance that DAP Health was one of 14 sites across the country, we were awarded this, it would have been 3 years ago, by HRSA, and we get a lot of support through UCSF in San Francisco. And part of this initiative was for each implementation site to develop a rapid start model that can be embedded within the clinic, within their organization, to get people with HIV on medication within 7 days. So when we look at different people with HIV, there's different patient types, right? So somebody could be newly diagnosed today in our clinic. Somebody could have been diagnosed 3 years ago, but for whatever systemic or cultural barrier, never sought care at the time of their diagnosis, or people who've dropped out of HIV care for the hundreds of reasons that we could list, whether it would be substance use, losing employment and losing their roof, transitioning, right? Living on a couch or moving state to state. So any of these people with HIV could come to DAP and get medication safely and quickly, and as quick as within 7 days.
Well, that's amazing. So, you the different patient types are someone that's newly diagnosed for HIV, which is any person with a new positive HIV rapid test result, confirmatory or detectable viral load test within the last 12 months. Someone who's new to care, which is any person diagnosed with HIV greater than 12 months who has not attended an HIV care medical visit and has not started antiretroviral therapy, and of course, those who are out of care, which is any person diagnosed with HIV with previous engagement in primary HIV care who has no medical visit or laboratory test result for greater than 12 months and has agreed to return to care. So there are people out there, CJ, that know they're living with HIV that have fallen out of care. And you mentioned that there are all kinds of circumstances that could contribute to that. For example, homelessness, drug addiction, uh, and just the other inequities that exist in our society.
There are so many reasons on why somebody would fall out of HIV care. And I can give you an example of this as well. It was a little over a year ago. Our mobile clinic was doing some outreach at an organization that serves our unhoused folks. Been out of care for a couple years, and they were sick, right? So their CD4 count was probably, I would say, below 200 to 300, and
Oops. So CJ has disconnected and he's going to be back, I'm sure. So in the meantime, I want to give a shout out to Lance who's tuned in, and we'll bring CJ back on. Hi, CJ. You were
hi,
sa-
I'm
you were saying.
I was saying, yeah, so our mobile clinic was doing some outreach at an organization that serves the unhoused folks. And my team identified somebody that's been out of care for 2 years of HIV. And it was somebody who was there to get lunch, right? And they only cared about getting food at that time and figuring out like where are they going to be going after the lunch is served. So getting back into HIV care, coming to DAP, having a conversation with the outreach team really was not their priority at that time. It was all about food in their shopping cart that held all their belongings. So it took a good 30 minutes for the team to be able to like kind of like talk to this patient to really kind of like get them to want to take action today because they were sick. And so we were able to get a lift ride to that patient here to DAP, and we were able to take their shopping cart that had all their belongings and put it in our mobile clinic and transport it here to DAP. So that patient was there with their shopping cart. We got them here to our Orange Clinic, which is our sexual wellness clinic that's currently housing this Rapid Start program, where we didn't take his insurance, right? We didn't really ask any of those kind of questions that typically you think are asked in a clinic. Those are barriers. We get rid of those when we're talking about sexual wellness and getting people rapidly started on HIV medications. So they were able to see our nursing staff. They were able to see our nurse practitioner. They were able to restart HIV medications. They got a 2-week supply, which we call a starter pack. And then our linkage to care team, which is known as EIS here, was able to talk to them about, okay, we know we grabbed you away from lunch. We know you need food, right? So we give them food right there on the spot. We give them a $50 card that they can use at Stater Brothers across the street. And then we talk to them about CalFresh or other services offered either through the state or local food distribution, and really start that holistic care to a person, because they're not prioritizing their health care. They're worried about food and a roof over their head. And so that's one example of somebody who's fallen out of care. And I can share with you, this person actually was housed 4 years ago. They had a job, but when they started using drugs again, they ended up losing their job and then losing their housing, and they ended up homeless. And so everybody has a story, and everybody has experiences that lead us up here to today. But our job is to listen to people and say, hey, we understand that right now your priority is probably not getting into HIV care. So we're not going to charge you. We're not going to take your insurance. We're going to get you a ride. We're going to get you food. We're going to get you the medication. We're going to do everything we can to improve your quality of life.
You mentioned that you go out of your way to, at DAP Health, to hire people that can really engage with those in greatest need, and that have the experience, strength, and hope to share with that individual. I know some of your story personally, but I don't know how much you share publicly. Are you public with your own sort of journey?
I am. I share.
Well,
Yeah, I share my story. Absolutely.
well, then you were in this person's situation at some point in many regards, and I would be honored if you would share with me and the audience how you were in this person's shoes in many ways.
Yeah, I moved to Palm Springs in 2013 from rural Ohio with nothing, $20 and a dog, and I did everything I could to survive. Spent some nights at Ruth Hardy Park and couch surfed, right? And I did a lot of things to just survive at the time. And so when you look at public health, whether it's HIV care or just healthcare in general, there's just so many different things that are going on. They're known as negative social determinants of health, right? Preventing someone to accessing the services and care that they need. And it could be race, it could be gender. I mean, there's so many different factors that go into play. And when you look at the community health department, we're now about 40 people strong. We've quadrupled in staffing, but we have launched a community health worker program where we've actually recruited and hired and now trained for people living within the communities most impacted by HIV and health inequities, that are going to go door to door, and they're going to be the ones that are really going to be leading the relationship building with their neighbors, with their friends, with their family members, to talk about DAP health services, about getting tested for HIV, about coming in for treatment, about getting primary care, the importance of mental health to someone's quality of life. And so we've been able to launch that program, and they are probably four of the most amazing people I've ever met. But we all sit down at a table and we share our experiences about what brings us here today, why DAP Health, why the Coachella Valley, and what motivates us to provide services and care to our community.
Well, that's just really spectacular, and thank you for your own vulnerability and authenticity. I really appreciate that. So, do you happen to know the statistics for, in terms of men who have sex with men, how many of them are meeting this way?
I
The
don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but I would probably I mean I'm not going to throw out a number, but I'm just going to say there's probably a lot. I would say a lot of people today are probably going to be utilizing the phone, the apps, right? Any kind of social media, especially coming kind of out of the COVID pandemic, where meeting in person really was kind of really hard at first. But yes, I think a majority of men who have sex with men are probably using some way, shape, or form some app on their phone.
Well, the reason that I wanted to ask that question is to get back into the crucial need for people to know their HIV status. So, on those apps, thankfully, there's now fields. For example, if I'm on one of the apps, I can identify myself as someone who's HIV positive, undetectable. Now, for viewers that may not know this, an HIV positive person who's successfully treated on antiretroviral medication develops what is known as an undetectable viral load, and people who have an undetectable viral load cannot transmit HIV to their sexual partners. So basically, when you put positive undetectable in a profile, if it's true, then you're basically saying to your potential sexual partner, you cannot get HIV from me. However, in that environment, a lot of people, some people lie, but other people, many people, don't know their HIV status. So they may be presenting themselves as HIV negative. They may believe that they are HIV negative, tell their sex partner this or not, have a sexual experience, and the reality is they were HIV positive. And if they're HIV positive and they're not on medications, they could very well be transmitting HIV. So, not only is the effort of your department to get people with HIV rapidly into care, but you also want to reinforce the importance of someone knowing their HIV status. And if they are HIV negative, then inform them about all the ways to stay that way. So, what would you like to say about the ways that people can stay HIV negative, and also the sorts of important conversations that your department might encourage people to have as they approach sexual activity?
Well, I would say the first thing I think you bring to light, which is undetectable equals untransmittable. Someone living with HIV, taking their medication as prescribed, not being able to transmit HIV to a negative sex partner, right? That to me is huge. It's the foundation of ending the HIV epidemic. And so that's why Rapid Start here. That's why this national initiative, which will probably become a standard of care through HRSA in every clinic across the country, that's why it's so important. It's for people living with HIV to obviously know their status, but get on that medication as quickly as possible so they become undetectable, which means they're not going to transmit HIV to someone else. So that's crucial. When we talk about someone who gets tested, right, and there's many ways people can get tested. We have a clinic here in Palm Springs at TAP Health known as the Orange Clinic. We have a sexual wellness clinic in Indio. It is free. Every testing, even STI treatment and PrEP and PEP, completely free services. So when you talk about staying or remaining HIV negative, the game changer is PrEP, right? It's one pill once a day or one injection every 2 months. So if you're somebody who is sexually active, or maybe you are just fearful for contracting HIV, you have options. And so I would definitely say you need to go to daphealth.org or come into our building, talk to our PrEP navigation team, and see if the pill form or the injectable form is best for you. But we have the tools to end the HIV epidemic here in our region, but it's about creating the marketing strategies, right? The community health worker programs, really going after the folks that we know aren't going to come to us for many of the reasons that we've already discussed previously, and building that relationship and establishing that trust and saying, come see us, get tested. And regardless of the outcome, you have an entire organization and community that's going to be here to care for you.
The One of the things you offer, people can just walk in and request an at-home HIV test, or they can ask you to mail them one. And I was wondering, do they need to live in DAP's service area for you to mail them an HIV test?
They don't. We've mailed test kits to Tennessee, to Iowa, to Florida, all over the country, especially right after the COVID pandemic. Sorry, during the COVID pandemic, which was about March of 2020. In May, we ended up launching the self HIV testing program where we advertised on social media apps, and it was really a couple of clicks, fillable form, and then we would mail you that self HIV test that people could take themselves. If people did not want it mailed to their home for confidentiality reasons, they lived within the area, we did a drive-through where people could just come through and pick up a self-HIV test. And we've actually seen that the self-HIV test also is very popular at community events because nobody wants to take a test and wait around for 20 minutes, whether with family or friends or confidentiality purposes. So a lot of people will take home a self-HIV test. And part of that self-HIV test, it comes with a whole lot of resources. So if somebody does test positive at 2 o'clock in the morning for HIV, and let's say they've had a couple of drinks, and let's say they're not even in the state, we have a community health worker who has a phone that's on them 24/7 with that number. So anybody receiving these tests will be able to call either for support, for counseling, for linkage to either treatment or PrEP, or just to get on a video call and help determine the result of the test, because sometimes that line is hard to see. And part of the Rapid Start initiative, Nicholas, our brand marketing team was really spotlighted about the work that they did, partnering with community influencers, people that have way more followers than you and I. It would be very much like the gentleman that you have as far as advertising this segment, right? Very extremely good looking, a huge following, getting the word out there. And so we ended up partnering with some of these models to be able to then advertise self-HIV testing. And they ended up creating these commercials and these videos, sharing on their social media sites to their millions of followers. And it generated hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of self-HIV tests to people who typically would not have gotten one.
Well, that's fantastic. I became HIV positive in August of 2007, decades into the AIDS pandemic, completely knowing how to protect myself. And I was sober at the time. I probably was dealing with depression. But I actually had a conversation with my sex partner, and my sex partner did say and believe he was HIV negative. And so I had a rare slip in my safer sex behavior, which I beat myself up about a little bit, maybe a lot, but then I basically came to acknowledge that I was a human person. I was a human being in a moment of passion who made a particular decision that had a significant impact on my life. But now, becoming HIV positive, living with HIV, is a long-term manageable illness. It's technically described as an illness. It's more like a condition because I'm not ill. I'm living with HIV, but I'm not ill, and in many ways I'm thriving. But that's because I learned what my status was. I got on antiretroviral medication, and I'm very well connected to care. I get to see a doctor every 3 months at DAP Health. So there's a lot of joy and hope, and well, that's it, joy and hope that come from engaging in the process of knowing one's HIV status.
It is, and I appreciate you sharing more about your personal journey as well. Because with me, when I found out I was HIV positive, it was before PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, came about, and I had no idea what HIV or AIDS was at the time in rural Ohio, and I can tell you it was a good 3 to 4 years. I mean, I was just mental health, suicide, depression, still learning about coming out as gay, much less somebody living with this disease at the time, right? Of not even knowing what it was and facing all the stigma and shame from people in the community. I mean, it's a lot. And at the beginning, for some people, it's almost unbearable and it's scary. But for anybody that is, say, newly diagnosed today with HIV, or say you've been HIV positive for years, and you've not sought treatment, There's light at the end of the tunnel. It's not as bad as what you think because you just don't know yet. I was en route to become a school teacher and a basketball coach, and probably had every dream to just stay in Ohio. And that HIV diagnosis just completely flipped my life. Yes, it was a struggle at the beginning, but I'm now at DAP Health, surrounded by nearly 300 employees, 400 volunteers, and an amazing community that accepts me for me, including my HIV status, my blue eyes, me being 5'10", because it just is all what makes me me, right? And to be here in Palm Springs in 2022 and alive and healthy and being able to make an impact in the community with all the partnerships we do, right? And the people in the community health department and within our clinics. I'm so grateful to be here. So to anybody that's struggling or scared to get tested, you have the support, you have the love, you have the open arms to hug you. We will be here. We will always be here. So go get tested.
Well, that's just so beautifully stated. And I've brought up daphealth.org because I just wanted to demonstrate how easy it is to get to the information that your department provides. So, right here in this submenu is a Sexual Wellness Services tab. And when you click on it, there is all sorts of opportunity. Can see the information on free STI testing and treatment, free PrEP and PEP services, Mpox Q&A, free HIV testing, free Hep C screening. Sexual wellness services are in Palm Springs and also in Indio. And CJ, because people all over the world watch my show, I was wondering, how do people find HIV testing and similar services in their own communities?
Well, what I would recommend if somebody has a phone is going into Google and typing in your zip code of your town. I mean, that would probably be the logical first thing that I think somebody would do if they have a cell phone, is to use Google. Um, I would also, obviously, county health departments, right? I would ask your doctor, or you can always just come to daphealth.org and you can request a self HIV test and we will mail it to you wherever you live. Or if you just need to have a conversation about, hey, I am living in the middle of a field in Ohio because I once did. Where can I go to get tested? Right? Where can I go? Is it Planned Parenthood? Is it a family care clinic? Is it a county clinic? Maybe we could do something on the virtual side because that's something that we continue to do here at DEP Health, is provide as much virtual care as we possibly can.
Well, this is all fantastic, CJ. I was wondering, is there anything else that you would like to talk about that you want to repeat or that we haven't addressed in our conversation today?
No, I don't think I have anything much else to say, except I will leave you with this. We do have a new clinic opening here on our main campus. It's going to be the Orange Clinic, but it's going to be a new one. And it's opening January 9th. So if you're not already in care here at DAP Health for sexual wellness, please come to our campus, check out our new clinic, meet our staff. There's about 15 clinical staff right now that's caring for patients, and we're seeing 700 people a month, making sure people are tested, treated, getting access to PrEP and PEP, and rapid start for someone living with HIV. So I say, come see us. Check out our website. You can get a hold of me personally. I do coffee, I do group meetings. We can walk and talk. I mean, if you're a patient here and you want to share your experience, whether it's positive or ways we need to improve, I am an open book with an open door. So just reach out to me.
And was it a basketball coaching that you know, or was it baseball? I didn't remember. I don't remember.
Well, I've done both basketball and
So
baseball.
he can
Yeah.
give you tips on your game as well. Well, CJ, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
You as well. Thank you, Nicholas.
Hang out for a moment and we'll talk to you after the show. And for everybody watching, be sure to go to daphealth.org, or for resources in your community, just Google HIV testing and treatment and put in your zip code, and or give DAP a call. Until next time, with CJ Toby, I'm Nicholas Snow. Thank you for watching.